All right, welcome back to the Clemson Indoor Facility. This week's edition of Tuesday Tiger Talk. Another fun day listening to Dabo Venables. We squeezed Venables in there at the end. Weren't sure we were going to get him, but he did show. And a number of players today. Will, let's start with one of the things you heard during Dabo's long press conference today.
Yeah, well, it wasn't as long as last week. So that's the good news. It was like 8 minutes shorter than last week, but it's still.
But he started about 4 minutes later, so it's still long.
Oh, it was still very long. It was. Yeah, I'm not gonna argue that point. But no, I just found it interesting, and it's really not so much Dabo said as much as what Dabo made me think. And Dabo made me think about how. A lot of people look at, and this is the story I wrote on the Clemson side. A lot of people look at that Auburn win in 2011 as the win that signified the new era. I really believe it was that win in Plattsburgh that signified the new era. And that's what I wrote about, because Virginia Tech was the higher-ranked team. They were the favorites to win the ACC that year. They had all these people coming back on their team. They were basically what Clemson is this year, if you will, that season. And nobody gave Clemson a chance to win that game.
Were they coming off national championship? Back-to-back title appearances?
No, but they were coming off an ACC championship, and everybody predicted them to be in the BCS that year. And they ended up, if you remember, in the ACC championship game, they were the number 3 ranked team in the country when Clemson beat them, and they were talked about as a team to go to the BCS. So even though Clemson had already beat them during the regular season. So it kind of got me thinking, and Dabo kind of mentioned that, went down that road a little bit too, how they were the underdog in that game, and nobody gave them a chance. And now you look 6 years later, and here's Clemson. They're the favorites. They're a 7-point favorite in this game. Nobody's giving Virginia Tech a chance to probably win this game, and it's going to be that atmosphere. That atmosphere is going to be big. Up there in Plattsburgh, it's going to be game day. First time they've had game day there in a long, long time, and it, unlike Louisville,
You think they'll show up?
Unlike Louisville, they'll show up because they're a football program, and so it's going to.
After today, Louisville might be a football program.
Yes, the news that broke today. I bet you it's tough being a beat writer at Louisville right now. Anyway, it was just interesting to hear Dabo tell that story and kind of do the comparison, the similarities. Also played 3 straight ranked teams that year. This year, the Clemson's playing their 3rd ranked team. That year, they also played Auburn. This year they played Auburn. That year they played the same weekend. They're at Virginia Tech. They're playing this weekend. So a lot of similarities, except the only thing different is Clemson's the favorite instead of Virginia Tech.
All right. Can you beat that? All right, Gavin. One of the things you heard today was Cleveland Farrell talked a little bit, kind of was pretty open about the recruiting process. He obviously looked hard at Virginia Tech, and he talked a little bit about breaking the news and how some of that went.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Cleveland, of course, is a Virginia native. Virginia Tech recruited him very hard during the recruiting process. His final 3 schools were LSU, Clemson, and Virginia Tech. So when the time came, he made his decision. He obviously informed Clemson of his decision, but he also, being the stand-up guy he is, he wanted to call the other schools that he was considering and let them know, thank them for recruiting him, and wanted to tell him he was grateful for that opportunity. And when he called Virginia Tech, the conversation didn't turn out exactly like he thought it might have. He didn't quite expect what he heard. He told a Virginia Tech coach, which he did not name. He did not name which Virginia Tech coach it was, but he said when he called him and thanked him, what he heard back was he basically said, let's just say I got cussed out. So the coach was not happy with Cleveland's decision not to choose Virginia Tech, and Cleveland was talking about he didn't realize before that, or really realize how important it was to Virginia Tech to keep their guys in state, and he said it's basically like Georgia, how Georgia recruits the state of Georgia is how Virginia Tech recruits the state of Virginia. So that was why the coach wasn't too happy, and he talked about that. And so this game's going to carry a little extra meaning for Cleveland. Now Cleveland's saying all the right things. This is just another game, a nameless, faceless opponent. But you got to think there's going to be maybe a little bit of a chip on his shoulder heading into this one. He said last year he kind of thought about getting cussed out, and when he was playing in the ACC championship game, that kind of crossed his mind a little bit. But he said this year he didn't think he'll think about that as much as he did last year. But you got to still think, when you get cussed out by a Virginia Tech coach, when you play that team, you got to still think that's always going to kind of linger around with you. So I expect him to come and play a great game this week against his hometown team. He's going to have a lot of family there, a lot of friends from high school, and so it's going to be a good opportunity. And another thing Cleveland said was that when he committed to Clemson, at first it took a little bit of time for his family to come around to the decision. He said he said they kind of had to get adjusted to things, but now they're telling him, oh yeah, Cleveland, go beat Virginia Tech. Yeah, you got this. And so he's definitely converted them to Clemson fans too. So.
Well, I expect a huge game from Cleveland Saturday night. He hadn't had that breakout game yet this year, like he did late last season in the playoffs.
He's played well. He just
played
hadn't had
well.
that-
He just
that-
hadn't,
right.
and he's been back there. You got a lot of almost sacks,
He
a
gets
lot of pressures, get a lot of double teams. But I expect this may be his best game of the year. Will, you asked a question to Dabo that we heard him talk a little bit about on his radio show last night, and he kind of gave an interesting response. You kind of set that up for him today.
Yeah, asked him about, kind of the fans being disgruntled, if you will. You guys, talking about you, we're booing. And so I asked Dabo, did that surprise him, basically coming off a national championship season? And he said, no, it didn't surprise him. He said he even turned to the players and says, guys, we're getting booed now. They're booing us. They're booing us. And so, and actually in the post game, a lot of the players talked about being booed and so he did, Dabo did obviously tell them about being booed, and but he says part of it, and but he said he thought it still was a good win. He said it's not going to change how he does things just because the fans are booing. They got a way that they're calling a game and looking at a game, and it's not the way necessarily the fans may like it because they're not scoring every 2 seconds like they've done at times in the last several years. He says, but you know what? They still won by 27 points in the game. He says, you tell me I'm going to score 27 points in the fourth quarter every week, I'm going to take it. He says, you tell me I'm going to win 3-2.
I was going to say, he just said the same thing whether they won 14-7 or 34-7.
Yeah, exactly. He said 3-2, and he said, I'll take it because a win's a win, and whether the fans are happy or not, they're going to go celebrate a win because they worked too hard during the week, getting up to that point. And trust me, I don't know if they do work hard. I mean, I can't stress enough the hours that go in to this football program, not just from the coaches, but from the players. I mean, people just, if they really could just try to grasp or just follow a player for a day to see what they have to do, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, working out, going to an 8 o'clock class, coming back, doing some more studying, game film study, then going back to class, and then coming back, and then going to team meetings at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, staying up until practice starts. Then they got to go and study hall after practice. I mean,
they got to eat, too.
Guys, they got to eat at some point. Those guys put in 12, 14-hour days with their school and football. And so, yeah, they deserve a 3-2 win. Take it. Just celebrate it.
I mean, they got to save time for bowling, putt-putt, little golf simulator.
I will be honest. They don't get to do much of that this
nap time.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on. You're making it.
Come on. All right. Gavin, Dorio and Daniel talked about a part 2 today. What did he talk about?
Well, this Clemson versus Virginia Tech game is kind of a leave no doubt part 2. That's kind of the mantra for Clemson heading into this week's game, as it was heading into the Louisville game. Louisville, of course, the Clemson-Louisville games had been decided by one score or less 3 straight years heading into this season, and Clemson going into that game wanted to leave no doubt, and of course the outcome as it was, they left no doubt about who was the better team in that game. And so heading into this one, it's a similar mindset. Clemson wants to leave no doubt about this outcome after the close finish in last year's ACC championship game. Cordrea Tankersley, a late pick by him, sealed it, and so they want to go in and leave no doubt about who the better team is. They don't want Virginia Tech walking away from this game thinking that, hey, we could have won this. They want to leave no doubt and say we were the better team, because Clemson prides itself not only on getting these wins, but they pride themselves on how they play in these wins and hold themselves to a standard. Like if they play well, but if they get the wins, the most important thing, and they're happy about it. But if they don't play well and get that win, they're not satisfied. And we've seen that with the defense this year, especially. They've been lights out, but still they're not satisfied. They keep wanting to get better, and so that's the mantra heading this week for Clemson. Leave no doubt. We'll see if they can leave no doubt on Saturday.
If it works this week, then every week needs to be leave no doubt. Part 4, Part 5. Part 6. All right, that's all we've got for you. Tuesday, Tiger Talk, this week's edition. Stay tuned all week long. We got lots of coverage. Headed up to Blacksburg this weekend for the best coverage on Clemson football.